So, first of all, in your words, what does the county board do?
In my words, I would say the county board um, kind of manages the county and kind of makes sure that what needs to get done is getting done as far as like road work, construction, and pension plans and that kind of thing. So before I had ran for city council, which focuses directly on the city, and of course the Macon County would is kind of over all of the cities in that area, and just making sure that we're following proper procedure. And I know the county board handles a lot of the financial aspects of the county.
Okay. All right. You mentioned your city council candidacy. How did that campaign go?
It was interesting. It was the first time, I believe, in quite a while that Decatur actually had a primary. So I didn't do too well in the primary, and I think it was just kind of a lack of visibility thing. So I did get quite a few votes. I got 300, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Broadly speaking, why are you running for county board District 3 this year?
The main reason I'm running for county board in my district is that I am currently the only Democrat running for my district.
Okay.
Um, so again, just trying to get more visibility to the party. The main goal is, of course, just continuing the work that the board is doing now as far as getting road work done. I know in my district specifically, um, Highway 51 over here, they started some construction. So just I just want to get back out there and kind of the same goals I had when I ran for city council is just get everything back on board. Now this time it's a little bit bigger. It's not just Decatur. My district goes all the way to Moreau and Friends Creek. So just getting up there, getting to know people, trying to work. I think a big goal for me is getting the Democratic Party to start um, going kind of how we used to go and working towards workers' rights. Excuse me. Ooh, I almost sneezed. Excuse me.
Oh.
Tickling my nose. I apologize. But
Oh, no
yeah,
worries.
working for the working class in our area. I think we could definitely use some improvement on that. And of course, continuing the work I was doing before, trying to make the county enticing to get further businesses involved, especially in Decatur. Um, but yeah, just trying to continue the momentum that we've been creating.
Okay. Now, when you say enticing for further businesses, do you have a particular type of business in mind or particular approach to making that happen?
Not necessarily. It's a pretty broad look. I mean, there are a lot of jobs. I know when I ran for the council, um, I met with a couple of people to go over just kind of what we're missing in Decatur. But I think the big thing is good paying jobs. Paying jobs with good healthcare plans and that kind of thing. I think that's kind of what we're going for. Is to bring because we have factory jobs here, and it would be fantastic to have another factory, another two factories. We'll take any jobs we can get, but we also want to make sure that they're good paying jobs and that they're going to benefit our citizens the most.
Okay. All right. So you've mentioned the bringing businesses, and so I was going to ask, what are your three biggest priorities for county board? I assume the businesses and the workers' rights would be part of that.
Yes, so the top three would probably be um, working to create new business for the county, working to protect workers' rights, and I believe, let me think for a third one. My mind just went blank. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
For the third, kind of like I said earlier, making sure that we're staying on top of construction. In Decatur specifically, there's a lot of areas for improvement as far as roadways and things like that. So it's going to be, I'm sure, continued talk. I know the county board's definitely working on it, and I know that the city council has been talking about working with the board to kind of work on those areas. So that's just a nice focus point for me. I think those three pretty much cover the main focus.
Okay, thank you. All Right. So, what do you think are the three biggest priorities for voters on the political left?
I think right now, from talking to people in the parties that are more to the left, I think really it's workers' rights. I think again that we definitely need some improvement on that. Just making sure that the job places are focusing on protecting their employees, whether that be OSHA, that kind of thing, and also making sure that they're getting paid equal and equitable wages um, across all platforms, whether it be male, female, or different races. So there's definitely, like I said, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. I've heard, plenty talks from citizens that there's in Macon County, there's kind of a little bit of a differentiation between um, how certain races are paid and certain races are taken care of. So I think it's good to focus on, like I said, making it equal and equitable, not just equal.
Okay. So one priority of voters on the left would be workers' rights. Could you name a couple other?
So another thing we're focusing on, um, again, is finance. Trying to create a flourishing Macon County. Um, I know that Macon County has taken quite the hit from the pandemic. So I know they've done some, the county and the city of Decatur at least have done some outsourcing projects recently with kind of the Buffett team and stuff like that. So it's really, I kind of think that we've already kind of started the process. It's just making sure that we have the right people in office to continue the work that we started.
Okay, so workers' rights kind of revitalize the local economy.
Correct.
And third priority of voters on the left?
I think another priority for voters on the left, um, I think right now is just representation because there's a different, like I said, there's a shift now because of the change in mapping. So I know that a lot of voters on the left are concerned on the representation for the party. Like I said, I'm the only one running in my district, and my district is now three cities. It's a portion of Decatur, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also Monroe and Friends Creek. So, from the talks that I've had within the party, it's making sure that we are still active and keeping, like I said, keeping people where they need to be to keep the progress going.
Okay, so we have workers' rights, local economy, and democratic representation after the redistricting.
Correct.
Right. So, what do you think are the three biggest priorities for voters on the political right?
As far as the right goes, um, I also think that they, from what I've seen, I believe that they were looking kind of for um, good good job opportunities. I know I've spoken to some people, and I think the right is concerned that there's not enough people working. That's a lot of things I've heard. Um, so I know that they kind of view it as, we have all these jobs that are available and people aren't working. But I just think the difference in that is those jobs are not necessarily the most attractive uh, positions. So that's kind of where that ripple is. I also think that for voters on the right, again, I think there's a general because of the recent issues in upper government. I think there is a general concern um, and distrust in the government, and I think the right is looking for someone that we can put trust into, that's going to fulfill their roles, um, and work to protect their area, and not so much as just represent a bigger party as a whole. Um, so that's a couple things I viewed from some Republicans.
Okay, so not enough people working, distrust in the government, and having somebody in there to trust. Do you have a third priority on the political right that you can think of?
Let me think here. It's
Mm-hmm.
political. Well, I know the political right right now is they're also focusing on Republican representation. So for midline voters, it does get a little blurry. That's kind of what I witnessed in the numbers from the primary. That there were a lot of Republicans voting in my district, but not all of them were necessarily voting Republican. So I think the Republican Party itself is also focusing on representation. I believe that's part of the whole their plan to redistrict everything was just to kind of get more Republican influence. So, I think right now they are also working to get their piece in.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So what policy proposals or legislation have you either written in the past or are planning to write?
So there's quite a bit of collective work that the Democratic Party has been working on. I know there's a lot of talk right now, again, about workers' rights. That's kind of like a really big focus for us right now. So as far as legislation would go for the county, um, I haven't started any personal um, paperwork for that, but I know that there has been talks in the party, and I think a big push for me is focusing on workers' rights in Macon County. So I think that's it. I were to get the office, I believe that's kind of where I would start, just because there's already been a lot of collective talks between the Democrats. We've been trying to reach out and kind of work with the Republican Party. That's not always the easiest thing for our party to do, but that's definitely something that I know we have in the works, and would definitely be something that I would want to be a part of if I took office there.
Okay. All right. Then, what existing county policies and legislation would you like to change or overturn?
There are some, as far as the county goes now, I believe that due to the redistricting, that it invalidates a lot of voters, just because of the way that it's formatted, and it makes it harder for certain parties um, to make a stance in. So I think one of the main things that needs the most work is the redistricting. I know that the Democrats are working on that now as far as challenging it, but there's a lot of steps to that. So as far as county policy goes there, there's definitely room for improvement with the districting. I think there's also some room for discussion, at least with zoning and some of the zoning laws. Uh, I've heard from um, a few groups of people that were interested in creating businesses in the area, that they had a lot of trouble with some of the zoning issues, whether it be in I'm sorry, Maroa or in Decatur. I've heard a couple from there. So there's definitely room for improvement there as well. I don't know if I would necessarily say overturn it. Maybe just could use a good tune-up.
Okay. Do you know at this point? Do you know specifics of how you might change the zoning laws?
I don't have specifics yet. I
Okay.
think, like, again, it's not like I could just change it myself. I would definitely have to have support from my party, and also some support from the Republican Party. So there would definitely be work there. Um, there's been talks in the past about it, and they kind of go up and down,
Mm-hmm.
how we should adjust anything. But I know that to achieve something that big, we would definitely need um, majority support from the Democratic Party, and at least some form of support from the Republicans.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you would like to add regarding your political platform?
I don't think there's anything else. Really, like I said, it's kind of the three main focus there is that I'm wanting to get on the county board so that I can represent the party well, so that I can continue the work that we've already started and the conversations that have already begun as far as specifically workers' rights and protecting our citizens from dangerous work environments. So that's kind of where we're starting. There's still a lot of work to be done from here to November, and I'm sure I'll keep everybody updated and keep everybody posted on the changes and as I go, because it's a growing experience for me. It's a lot bigger than the city council. Now you're over multiple areas, multiple sectors. So there's definitely a learning curve, but I'm up to the challenge, um, and that's kind of where I'm starting.
Okay, cool. Um, all right, then we will move on to your political history and ambitions. You had already talked about your candidacy for city council. Do you have any other? Uh, have you held any elected offices in the past?
I have not held any elected offices in the past. So the city council was my first campaign in 2020, and I
Okay.
have not held.
All right. Do you plan to run for office again in the future?
Yeah, I think this is a growing stone for me. It's going to be a big challenge for me in this district. It's me against three somewhat known Republicans, at least in the Monroe and Friends Creek area. So it's going to be a battle, but it's a battle that I enjoy. I enjoy a challenge. I'm up to bat for it, and I think this is just another stepping stone in my career. And if I end up not getting the office, I don't want people to think that's the end of me. So I think
Okay.
that happened with the city council. It's kind of like, oh, well, what's he going to do now? County board. I'm just going to keep shooting and keep representing the party the best that I can.
So, do you think you would run for city council next year if you don't make it on the county board this year?
Um, that's a good question. I'm definitely considering it. I have all the stuff that I would need if that were the case. But that was a very tough election for me, specifically because it was a primary and it kind of caught me off guard a little bit that we were going to have a primary so quickly. But the
Mm-hmm.
good thing is, again, that was a growing experience. So now I have the gumption to get up and do it again the next time. So there are pretty good odds that I would run again.
Okay, cool. Uh, then let's say you do get the county board or city council in the future. Do you plan on kind of staying local with your political with your campaigns, or do you have interest in going to more like state or national levels?
So the goal for me right now is, of course, to just stay local. I'm definitely working towards. I think the end goal is to work towards state um, and then national. But of course, national is pretty far away from me now. But I think local and state is a um, reasonable group. I could definitely do that. So I'm working now for local campaigns. And again, these are just stepping stones. Hopefully, I get the position. I want to represent Macon County well. I want to represent my party well. But I also want to plan for the future and what those roles would entail as far as continuing my work in the future.
Okay. All right. And what other relevant experience do you have, such as political volunteering, serving on nonprofit boards, secretarial work, or something else? You had mentioned the city council campaign, so I don't know if you want to add more about that, or if you have other experience you'd like to talk about.
Sure. So I don't necessarily have a whole lot of experience with uh, things that would relate directly to local government. I do have work in the past with nonprofits. I spent the most part of 2020 and a bit of 2021 advocating against gun violence with a couple groups there. And then after that, I kind of moved towards law. We started a little nonprofit, or not nonprofit, a little group trying to assist um, some cases in Illinois after the recent Illinois Senate bill passed, allowing the state's attorney to recharge offenders if they deem necessary. So if they deem the case no longer serves justice for them to be in prison, then the state attorney could recharge them. So I did a brief state with that. Me and Corey Walker attempted to do that. It was a big challenge because there are a lot of cases out there that need to be relooked at. So I think if I go any further than local government, it's definitely going to include law um, and working to help some of these some of these people that got the short end of the stick with their cases, and they definitely need a fresh pair of eyes. So that's kind of a background as far as what I've done locally. Like I said, again, it's not a whole lot involved with local government, but there is some history with nonprofits working to help our citizens.
All right. Would you care to share the um, names of the nonprofits you worked with for on gun violence, or the name of the group regarding the recharging of offenders?
So the gun violence group was Pain to Peace. We held um, anti-gun violence marches and a couple community events. We did that before my city council election, and then after my city council election, me and Cory Walker got together, and it's still, again, it's still kind of in the works. It was just kind of a side project we had. We started the Decatur Urban Justice Center, and we were instantly overloaded with paperwork there. So there's definitely more work to be done there as far as helping out with these cases. But those are the two organizations that I've kind of worked with in the past.
Okay. The Decatur Urban Justice Center, was that the one assisting with cases regarding the recharging offenders?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Then now we'll get on to some more specific questions that came from voters.
Sure.
So, how will you protect voting rights?
So I think the main thing with voting rights is making sure that we have the right people in those offices um, that oversee voting. Um, my mind's going blank here on the name of our current, but I know that there's an election for that as well.
The county clerk, Josh Tanner?
Correct. So it's making sure that we are involved with that office, with the county clerk's office, um, and making sure that we are acting transparently. And we need to build trust here, especially after the last sheriff's election. That put a big bullseye kind of on the county as far as how well we handle voting issues. That was drawn out for years. So it's just focusing on being quick, quick to respond, being transparent, making our voters feel comfortable, but also while we're doing that, making sure we're accurate. And if we need to do recounts and that kind of thing, that we do them immediately, and that we call in the force that we need to do it. So, go to the extra lengths to make sure that we are 100% accurate.
All right. And what are your budget goals?
I'm sorry, the phone's a little bit. Hello?
Yeah, yeah, sorry. What are your budget goals?
So again, we even the Democratic Party has taken quite a hit again because of the sheriff's election. That was kind of a wash for us. So I know they're in the middle of their own situation with that. So of course, the budget goals. You want to find the most affordable ways to make the county run. I know there's some room. There's some trimming we can do as far as money that we're putting into um, buildings. Um, it doesn't need to be erased. It just needs to be reorganized. I believe. I don't know a whole lot about the financial aspects of the Macon County Board. Again, that's a learning curve for me. But I
Mm-hmm.
do know that there are room for improvement as far as what we put towards things. I know a few people have questioned, why don't we get rid of this? These parts of town that are falling apart, and why are we allowing um, businesses that are no longer there? Why are we allowing them to stick around? And a lot of that is, I know that at least in Decatur, they have been chasing to find who owns some of these buildings, and they have found some people. But there's a lot of room for um, improvement as far as what we're spending our money on. So, of course, the budget goal, for me at least, is to reduce the amount of spending at least by 10%, and use that to go towards our citizens, um, and to just assist the entire county, which I know it's going to be like again, it's a stretch just for me, and so I can't imagine as far as the work we're going to have to do as a county. But I think somewhere in the 10-15% range, there's at least a little bit of room for cutback there and redisbursement into other areas.
Okay. So you said reduce it by 10. Try to reduce it by 10% to redirect some funds to citizens. Did you have specifics in mind about how, like, what programs that 10% would go to?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of great programs right now, like through Richland. I know Milliken has some programs. I haven't read too much about Milliken's programs, but I know that Richland has some really good programs as far as getting people trained for positions and getting people jobs. I think we can work on um, talent agencies to help get people in positions because there's a lot of people in Macon County and there's a lot of open jobs and there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that need the jobs. So I think we could use some of those funds to assist our citizens in getting good, well-paying positions.
Okay. All right, and so we are at about the 30-minute mark now. I have four questions left. If you have time to finish up with those, but if not, I would like to respect your time.
We can finish those. That's totally fine.
Awesome, thank you. So, what are your goals regarding taxes?
So I think right now, um, as far as the goal is, I'm not exactly sure if I have a set goal. I know that the tax situation in Macon County is it's kind of bumpy. I've been trying to kind of understand why it's a little bit different than other counties, but it's especially because we have other cities involved. So I know, like for a while, Decatur had their own gas tax. Everyone's asking, especially me. It kind of puts me on the spot when people ask me out in public, like, "What are we going to do about the taxes?" It's a difficult conversation, um, but again, that goes if we want to reduce those taxes, that's something that we can evaluate when we evaluate the budget. So when we make the necessary cuts and make the necessary disbursements, we don't have to send it all away to make, to these agencies or whatnot to get people in those positions. We could definitely use it to lower the amount of taxes we would have to charge our citizens, but that is a very takes a lot of steps to get there. And again, that's going to require a lot of work from our party and a lot of work from the Republican Party. So it's going to be, bridging that gap between us and just focusing on making our county better.
All right, thank you. And how will you address crime?
So I've always had a pretty crystal clear view of crime. We need to be doing what we can to prevent it. But I think a part of that is making sure that there's enough money flowing through our county to ensure that our citizens are not only safe but well taken care of. And I think there's a little bit of a discrepancy there as far as what we spend on our citizens and what we spend on the forces that are meant to protect them. I know there's a lot of concern in some areas of Decatur with you know police issues and being afraid of the police. Mainly, I think a lot of that stems from a national level, but there's definitely work to be done as far as protecting our citizens. Shootings are they're sporadic here, but they're definitely starting to snowball into something bigger. And it's something I talked about 2 years ago when I started my campaign for city council. Is we need to be working to find solutions um, instead of just the way we're working now isn't working. Is basically what I'm saying. We need to be investing in our communities, assisting with programs that help our youth. Because we need to be assisting people so that they understand that they are protected. Um, and I think there's a lot of distrust in the safety indicator. When I moved back here, everyone's always saying, why did you move back to this area? It's so dangerous. There's a lot of stuff to be done. As far as
Mm-hmm.
protecting our citizens. So again, that's going to be a lot of steps. But I did kind of mention what we can do. And now, the first thing we have to do is start. That's step one. Is just start a plan um, to address the issue and prevent the issue. So I think right now we're not working to prevent it. We're just allowing it to happen, and then it's simple patchwork to try and patch it up. So I think there's work on creating programs and plans to prevent further issues with gun violence and crime.
Okay. What goals do you have regarding cannabis dispensaries?
So cannabis dispensaries, that's something that was brought up, I believe, in a debate when I ran for city council. Originally, I do have quite a complex view of the situation, just because of things that I've learned. I lived in Oklahoma for a while, and I lived in Texas, and um, they have some decent cannabis dispensary programs there. It does bring a lot of money in. I know Springfield's economy has definitely boosted um, from those. I think a difficult thing for the county board, as far as introducing those, again, would be the city of Decatur. Recently, the council decided that they were not going to allow those in Decatur. So that it's work to work with the other party as well, with the Republican Party, um, and look at it as a numbers perspective, because I think sometimes when we think about cannabis, there's kind of an outdated view of what cannabis would bring to a community. But I know that these dispensaries are bringing in a lot of income, um, and a lot of funds to other communities that have utilized them. So I think um, that's definitely something we could do with the county, as far as kind of setting a standard for what we will and won't allow, um, and hoping that the count or the cities that we are over follow through.
Okay, so just to be clear, you are in support of having cannabis dispensaries in our area?
Yeah, I think they would bring a lot to the table,
Okay.
and I think that it would definitely maybe assist. Not maybe not directly, but I think it would have some sort of influence, at least on the crime, as far as bringing funds into the community to battle crime,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of bring it to a lower level. So I think bringing those in gives us more options.
Okay. All right. So this will be the last scripted question, anyway. Uh, from what sources do you get most of your news?
So I try to keep it relatively simple. I don't. Basically, what I'll do is, if there's a topic that I'm interested in, I will Google the topic, and I try to go through as many as many websites as I can. I don't watch the direct news, just because I think there are some there's some fear mongering there, and I like to have direct and clean sources. So, that's something that I learned was in when I was going to Milliken. Is to focus on what sources you use, and to do research on whether they're biased or not before you take information from them. So I usually go through, um, the top news stories, um, and pick my way through. There's not really a specific news source that I would use, just because I usually, like I said, I go through four, five, six of them, and take the base information from those.
Okay. So in that process, are you looking at like conservative outlets as well that might tend to disagree with what your perspective might be?
Yeah, so I like to keep a broad view. I've definitely looked at conservative news in the past. Um, I have tended to notice that there are, like I said, there are news sources that are more focused left and more focused right, and which the benefit from that is, when you do look at all of these, um, you get the full story. You get
Mm-hmm.
all of the information, and mainly how other people are viewing it. And I think that's really important, is to see how other people are viewing it, because my district is not 100% Republican or 100% Democrat. There's a good split in the middle there. I think it's important for people who are going to represent a public office, to understand that you are running for not just one party, but both parties, and you want to work to represent both parties the best you can, as far as citizens. So you may not have the same views, But I definitely think it's important to understand kind of what the other person's perspective is. Now, you don't necessarily have to agree with that perspective, and that may not have any influence on how you vote or how you develop plans for the future as far as your campaign or your um, the the laws that you're trying to get in place. But I do think it's important to have an overall experience. That way, you can understand where both people are coming from.
All right. Well, thank you for all of that, and thank you for your time.